Good morning and welcome to the Caregiver Teleconnection. My name is Glenda Rogers. I'm going to be your facilitator for today's session with Dr. Tam Cummings. And she does have a PowerPoint today, and it's called The Power and Purpose and Socialization and Dementia. And in case you don't know Tam, let me tell you just a little bit about her before we get started. Dr. Tam Cummings founded her company in 2009 with a mission to inspire, educate, and empower dementia caregivers. Now her professional gerontological practice in the Texas Hill Country is recognized as one of the leading educators of dementia caregivers and program design for dementia care nationally. And as usual, our session today is sponsored by Vitas Healthcare. They provide hospice services, and Tam will talk a little bit about that. For those of you on the call, I will put in their contact information. But for those of you out in the recorded session world, let me tell you what their number is. It's 800-723-3233. And Vitas offers these services in 13 states in the United States, including Texas, California, and Florida. And we know how critical hospice services are. Tam, could you talk about that for just a second?
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
Been traveling. We don't know what time zone she's in.
We don't. Didn't get to bed till 2 o'clock this morning, so hey.
Nothing but respect, my friend. Hospice is something that we really do want used. And in our country, unfortunately, most families only use it for 5 days, and it's intended to be in place the final year of life. It doesn't mean death is imminent, but the way Americans use it, it does. So when your person begins to lose weight, when they begin to change, when they now look like a person with dementia, you should be asking your doctor for a hospice order and continue to ask until you get that order. And Glenda, that's great, because I wanted to show y'all, as a gerontologist, I may run into things that you're not aware of. This is a woman named Barbara Carnes. And Ms. Carnes is world famous for a book called The Little Blue Book, but it's a tiny little blue booklet that's for the end of life. And this particular book I ordered from her website. So it's Barbara Carnes. She is a hospice and end of life expert and nurse. And she's on Indeed. If you go on Indeed, she actually followed her own husband's death with what was happening with him on Indeed for her followers, because Glenda, people don't understand what death looks like now, and they think it looks like what's on television, and that's not it. And a lot of people, even if they're not doing care at home, we all still need to know what happens. So this is Barbara's book called By Your Side, a guide for caring for the dying at home. And even if your loved one is not at home as they're dying, there is just so much power and so much support when you understand that your loved one's body is going through the normal process and procedure as a body moves into death. And when you know and understand what's coming, it just makes it a little easier, because Glenda, you and I know it's not like television.
No.
Nobody comes in and waves their hand and the person's eyes shut. The eyes and mouth are typically open in death as a normal part of the human reaction. So follow Barbara Carnes. She is a wonderful, wonderful resource. Even if you just send, I think it's honestly $2.50 for her little blue booklet. You'll also see them with hospice companies. I know Vitas carries her work, and I like this one because it's bigger and it actually has a final chapter on dementia in it. It's also written, Glenda, Barbara understands. Barbara writes in big print, and it's in easy to understand language. She does not write in medical language. So it really helps you and helps you get ready for conversations with your family, conversations with your physician or your caregivers, and to give you a better understanding of what's happening with your loved one's body physiologically and spiritually as the end of life approaches. And so use Vitas. Don't be afraid to call for hospice. We want you to use hospice. It's part of our Older Americans Act, and it's our tax dollars, Glenda. Let's use that money. Okay.
That's right.
So Glenda pointed out, I actually have a PowerPoint for y'all today. And the reason is I like to talk to this group in particular because y'all are able to give us a lot of feedback about things that you need and ways to help you understand these disease processes better. And so I told Glenda I was doing this one because I want to see if I can find a better way to help you understand what's happening to your loved one's brain cells so that you can be a better caregiver and be a calmer caregiver and not feel that overwhelming panic and that anxiety of what if, what if, what if. So Glenda said she'd go with me down this little rocky road and we'd see if this works. So what I'm wanting to find out from you guys is when we finish this little set of slides, does this make more sense to you about what is happening to your loved one's brain and how that is impacting their memory and the interactions that you have with them? Did that sound right, Glenda?
It does, and I'm glad that you're doing this today.
Awesome. So, Glenda, one of the main things you and I have to age well is socialization. And that's why we have independent living complexes now, assisted living, memory care. The main focus of memory care is that it is a social medical model, not a medical social model. But people have to have socialization in order for us to age well. And people with dementia age better when they have more socialization. And we don't understand it. We know that it's probably very early human neuron growth firing because socialization is one of the first things we learn, and we're born into a family, at least to a mother. So there's at least two of us. And so we know that groups of people aging together do better, or all groups do better when we have more socialization. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. We know how important it is to be around others.
Especially people that we like. Now, if you don't like
That's
them,
important.
yeah. And Glenda, you know, of course, I've always got to talk about brain physiology. So this is where this starts. Now, in the neuron, and you have to understand, neurons are not little round things with a little circle in the middle. They have hundreds or thousands of components inside that microscopic cell. That sort of blows my mind, Glenda. And then from the neurons, we get the dendrites. And the dendrites, as they grow, are what becomes what you and I know as memory or knowledge. Okay? So when you learn new information, your grandson calls to tell you they're pregnant, it's triplets. They're going to name them Huey, Dewey, Louie, and they're going to be born on July 4th. Glenda, the neurons in your brain that have to do with family and with your grandson, the hippocampus would light up at that information. The hippocampus, the thing that looks like a seahorse that makes memory, it would light up at that information because your hippocampus would immediately determine, well, that's information we need forever. Going to have new grandkids, got to have that down. So your hippocampus would then fire up electricity. It would gather neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals of the brain. And remember, those all haven't been identified yet, but it would gather up this electrical chemical package, and it would shoot that package to the areas or the lobes of the brain where, in your case and in this case, family memory would be. So your hippocampus would send information to your temporal lobes, to your frontal lobes. It would send some information back to your occipital lobes, a little bit up in the parietal lobes. Okay. And as it did this, that dendrite, the dendrites in those groups of cells got bigger because they got more information. You with me?
Yep.
Now, Glenda, do you remember being 20 and how smart you were and how dumb your parents were and how it just amazed you? How had they even managed to make it this far in life? Because my God, look at them, they can barely survive. And Then by the time you got to be 30, you realized that you didn't know what had happened. But in the last 10 years, your parents had suddenly gotten a lot smarter. And you were glad for that because you were kind of worried about them. The reality is, when you were 20, your dendritic growth on your 100 billion neurons, your dendritic growth was about that long, about a half an inch long. When you're 90, your dendrites on all of those neurons are about that long. So every time you learned something and your hippocampus said, we need to learn this, it fired up, it sent chemicals and electricity to the lobe, an area of the brain that holds that information. So you think about when you started at the Area Agency on Aging, you had this much, but by the time you left, how much more knowledge did you have? And how many times have each of us heard an older person tell us, child, I've already forgotten more than you'll ever know. Okay. Now, this is also one of the reasons that it takes longer for you to retrieve information as you age. An older brain is a thicker and richer brain. It has more experience. It has more knowledge. It takes longer for your brain to go through material to find an answer because there's more of it there. And mainly because of reflexes. Now, if you think about it, they don't send us to the Olympics. We send twitchy little 13-year-olds that can just take off at a spark. Our reflexes are slower. If you worry about going in a room, don't remember what you went in there for, normal. If you don't remember somebody's name, Glenda, there's a point in time in life when your brain goes, I know all the Johns I need to know, and I don't care. And if you're not marrying into my family and I'm going to see you every day, don't care. Brain doesn't care. Brain's busy. It's got other stuff to do. Are you with me?
I'm with you. It sounded interesting.
Okay. So different areas of the brain, different lobes, we know do different things. And we know that those different lobes hold different types of information. And so that's how the brain learns. And that's how those neurons grow. You with me? Well, the neurons don't grow, the dendrites do. Okay. So by the time a person reaches older age, those dendrites kept growing. And so I tried this out with a couple of different groups, and this is what I want to know from y'all today. Is it easier to look at that dendrite picture, or is it easier to follow the analogy through this set of pictures? Imagine every piece of knowledge you got for that one particular thing added another bead to your dendrite. Okay, so you got another more and another more until by the time a person is of old age, they've got a very thick, impressive brain. Okay, so each experience that your hippocampus decided to keep was added to the dendrites. So you went from a few beads to beads that are quite extensive and quite thick and complex. And those are going to be beads that have to do with probably more what your job is, what your love is, what your focuses are, right? Okay.
And people are liking that image that they're putting in the chat box.
But now here's the weird thing. The neurons in dementia, when the neurons begin to die, barring stroke activity. Okay, so for all of the others, except for the vasculars, the neurons take years to die. And some have been theorized that they may take decades to die. So are you with me so far?
Yep, yep,
Okay.
yep.
Now, you've got those beads and beads and beads and beads. It's not one strand of beads, it's beads and beads and beads. So the disease kills that outward bead, but there's still thousands of other strands over here that hold that material. So you might see a glitch or a hiccup, but then it recovers. And then another bead is lost. Another bead is corrupted. Another bead begins to starve. It dies. And so it's years before you see the effects. And it's not that, like in the case of your grandson, you simply don't have one neuron with information about your grandson. You have you and your grandson when he was a baby. You have you and your grandson at a football game. You have you and your grandson on a Disney cruise. You have millions of memories of tiny things that you may not have even realized your brain kept that were all part of that one thing. And now they're slowly dying. So as the dendrites die, family members are confused or get forgotten. The memory begins to be taken away, or pieces of it are taken away. But over here, you didn't even realize the brain kept part of it in a whole nother lobe, because something unique about the memory made that hippocampus keep that memory in different areas. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And then the losses are progressive, and they're predictable based on the type of dementia a person has, because the type of dementia you have determines how the neuron is dying, the order in which the brain lobes are attacked. And because we know what the brain lobes do, it tells you what's going to happen next in your loved one. But even in dementia, people still need to have purpose the same way the caregivers do. And even with dying neurons, the person still needs to have a purpose. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so.
And then finally, the neuron dies, and the person has to lose massive amounts of brain tissue before they look sick to outsiders. And that's what's so difficult for families, I think, is that because there is still so much memory and function working in the brain. And remember, all of your organ systems start above 100%. Your person has to lose a third of their brain before somebody on the outside can tell they're sick. Okay. And so even with massive brain tissue loss, they can still know things. Now, it's typically going to be old memory because the beads are dying. And as the beads die, you don't remember having grandchildren or great-grandchildren. And now you don't remember having children. And now you don't remember being married. And now you're in school. And now you want to go home to mom and dad. Okay. But there's still so much there. It's just that we can't focus on now. We have to focus on where that person is in their reality, because that's what's part of the brain that's still alive. And to try to do otherwise is sort of foolish, because that brain tissue doesn't exist anymore. And it's cruel because your person doesn't understand why you're trying to get them to do things that they have no clue about. Does that make sense, Glenda?
Yeah, does this replace, you used to talk about a filing cabinet and that there were files in there. Does this replace that or supplement that idea or?
I was looking at it as a supplement, because on the filing cabinet, we're coming back in such big chunks. But I thought people needed to understand this is why there's still so much left.
Okay.
It's relatively new information that these neurons die over decades. And that's why some of you saw something, but there was so much healthy brain tissue that it covered it up. Not intentionally, not on purpose, but that's just how powerful the brain is. And so I thought this would help people understand better, why can they understand something this moment but not the next? Why did they know it this morning but not this afternoon?
Right.
It all has to do with brain death and how thick and rich those dendritic growths are. So what my feedback is, I'm looking is, does thinking of it as beads help?
Well, I think it does. I don't know what anybody have a comment on that? You can just unmute your phone and we'll have a
Hi.
conversation about it. Hi, go ahead.
Thanks, Glenda. This is Emery. I think it helps. The idea that I'm wondering about is and pardon me if you said it, but it is the dendrite shortened in reverse order of build, or can you lose pearls in the middle of the strand?
Oh, it's dying from the end back.
From the end back. Okay. And
Oh.
so I should expect to see memory loss from most recent to oldest memories.
Right.
What about with Lewy bodies? Is that different with Lewy bodies?
It's not different. It's just that their brain is dying in a different order, and their hippocampus doesn't die as soon as the Alzheimer's person does. But they're expected to develop Alzheimer's. And your clue always that Alzheimer's is present is that the person begins to repeat information. And that's your clue that the hippocampus is no longer functioning. Okay, good question. Good question, Anne-Marie.
There's a couple other ones that have come up specifically on this. Sheila asked, in healthy older people, do neurons, memories start to die away anyway after decades, or is this only a function of the disease?
It's a function of the disease. And for normal aging elderly, you just got a lot of information packed in there. I mean, when you look at the richness and just the thickness of a mature brain, it's extraordinary. I think of it as, because we've been gardening a lot, I think of it as you pull out something that's got roots on it, on roots on it, on roots on it, and you pull out something that's got a shriveled root.
Yeah.
But
Got
my colleagues told me they didn't think plant roots was nearly as interesting as beads. So we went with beads.
Yeah. And another one. Well, and let me just say this, Tam, the feedback on the pearls, the beads is positive that they do like that. So, you keep that in mind. Anna asks, it's a nice addition to the file cabinet visual. A question, am I just further along in the acceptance of where mom is because I have stopped wondering about the why? It is about the what.
Yeah, it's you're communicating with her. What is it that she's actually trying to get through to you? And that's great maturity on your caregiver level.
Yeah, right. Guinevere, I see you there. Just hold on one second. And Meredith asked, how does this apply to vascular dementia?
Well, the difference is in vascular dementia, most frequently the cells are going to have a more instantaneous death because the greater majority of vascular dementias are stroke related. And in the stroke, those neurons die right then from the lack of blood supply or from the blood flooding in and crushing them, because the brain has no room for anything extra. So blood breaking from a blood vessel and flooding the brain, causing a hemorrhagic stroke, crushes neurons because there's no extra space up there for anything else to be. So with vascular dementia, it could be starvation, depending upon the type. Some of the gray matter and white matter vascular dementias would have more of this slow starvation effect. The people who are having strokes, active strokes, and blood pressure issues, theirs are going to be dying rapidly from the vascular event.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why
Okay, good. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Pam.
the Alzheimer's folks go down the slippery slope, right? Just one
Right.
decline or another. The people with vascular dementia, valley and plateau, they go down a slippery slope. They stair step down the slope because they have events. The doctor treats them. They change their blood pressure medicine. There's no more strokes for a while. The family thinks it can't get any worse. And then there's a sudden down change with them from occurring.
Right, right. Okay, Guinevere, go ahead.
Okay, good morning. I think the example of the beads are excellent. It kind of allowed me to understand, which I've talked to you about before. When a person is highly intelligent, then I can see that it takes different times and intervals for their neurons to die. So this is how they're able to fool a lot of people, and people don't see what you see because
they don't live with them 24 hours a day and they're not married.
Exactly what I was going to say.
And Guinevere, how many people think because he says, hi, how are you, and stands to shake their hand,
yes,
that is meaning he actually understands the full component of this is a social skill that I'm using now, and this is just the start of a social conversation, and he's just doing it automatically because he's done it all his life. And the person
who's it's rote.
Yeah, yeah.
It's rote.
Sheila, I see you there also, so if you'll just wait a minute. Anna wants to know, what if the vascular dementia isn't related to a known stroke?
Well, most strokes occur in the middle of the night. Most strokes are transient ischemic attack strokes, which means they are microscopic, and it's not until there's clusters of them that they can be seen. There is a theory, And when I talk to colleagues, we all see the same thing and we can't find literature on it. So our working theory is there is some sort of chemical change that begins to occur in people with brains that have dementia in them. And it must vary from dementia form to dementia form, but there seems to be some sort of chemical alteration that occurs that especially the spouse can notice, but it may be years before the damage occurs to where we have machines that can see it, like an MRI or a scan or a PET scan. So, and this is theory's sort of been bolstered by what's been discovered about these are considered inflammatory diseases. The medications are being talked about as antibiotics. They're being looked at sort of as slow developing viruses may be a possibility. And studies in Huntington's disease, where it's inherited, you either get it or you're a carrier, and only a tiny percent have nothing. But there seems to be a viral load in their brain that continues to build. And unless it reaches a certain point, you can't tell anything's wrong with that person. But once it tips over, it's apparent now that their Huntington's is going rampant. So that leads back to there is some sort of maybe a chemical interaction of something we don't even know to look for yet, or some sort of virus buildup that if it builds up enough on me, I end up with a dementia. If it only builds to a certain point on Glenda ages normally. So there's a lot that's just still not known about it. And one of the hard things I think for families is if the doctor says Alzheimer's, they don't look for anything else. And yet we know that it's more uncommon to have one dementia than it is to have multiple dementias. And given the obesity rate of our country, you would expect vascular dementia to be very, very common. And it is. It's just that you run into doctors who, once they find one, they don't look for any others. And they don't realize this is still a disease. The family needs to know everything.
Right. So Anna, I hope that helped you because Anna had said the MRI showing the spots. So would the MRI show spots in mom's brain? And you just said that maybe not until later.
Well, if it's showing spots in her brain, those are usually strokes will be white areas.
Yeah. And then still hadn't forgotten you, Sheila. Let me get this one and then I'm coming over to you. And so Meredith asked, so the break in the middle of so can the break be in the middle of the necklace? It doesn't have to be on the ends with vascular dementia.
Well, it wouldn't be a break in the middle of the necklace. It would kill the neuron. So it would kill everything. The stroke would. It wouldn't just partially, if it did for some reason partially damage the neuron would go ahead and die.
Yeah.
Right? Because part of the way those dendrites not only represent knowledge, but they're also part of the function of how the brain takes in nutrition.
Yeah. Complicated.
Very, very, very.
Okay, Sheila, go ahead.
Yes.
You've been patiently waiting.
Yes, yeah, I love the necklace. I really liked seeing the image of the axons and the dendrites, so I understood it, and then the necklace metaphor really worked. My question is, the person I'm caring for, my mom went through a 12-year dementia journey, which was, we didn't even know what it was for the first several years. With the person I'm caring for now, we've got a diagnosis, and she's about 7 years into it. And I'm stunned that she is so good. This is a very bright, educated person. And if you talk to her about a relationship or something with a story or a narrative, she's so insightful and she's following the story and she can refer back to it. And she seems to remember that stuff. It's a story. But anything with math or anything with kind of, specific information about what she did yesterday or where we're going for lunch or any technical, any just abstract data, like a piece of data, that doesn't stick. So
Right.
So that's that ability. The hippocampus is just not firing in that way to build any new dendrites now. Is that kind of what?
It sounds to me like there's been damage in the area of the brain where math is.
Yes.
Now, oddly enough, there are some frontal temporal dementias that those people can do math until the very end. there's other frontal temporal dementias where they stop doing math very, very early. So it's in an area of the brain and it indicates there's been damage there that she can't do that. And then she can't learn new information. So that tells you stage 5 and the hippocampus no longer exists or functions. And yet she has great insight when she tells these narratives or these stories. That tells me that she was a very bright, very articulate lady, and those areas of the brain have not yet been damaged.
Okay.
Okay. And that can be really hard to think about. So let's look at FTD, frontal temporal dementia. It's destroying the frontal lobes and the temporal lobes, which cause totally different behaviors than the parietal lobes and the occipital lobes. So a person with damage in a certain area, if this lobe is gone, but I still have these lobes that have some of that same information in it. Some of it is duplicate information. And then some of it is just stored information that hasn't been damaged yet. Okay. So it would depend on what she has, but it sounds like a vascular.
She actually has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So that's, based on the test that she's had. So thank you.
You betcha. You betcha.
Okay, Tam.
Yes.
Well, I was going to answer somebody else. I haven't forgotten you, Judith, so we'll come back to that when it fits in. Karen wanted to know, in regard to doctors not looking past the Alzheimer's diagnosis, how often does insurance cover additional testing affect that? Do you know that?
Yeah, about insurance. I don't do any of that. I just
Yeah.
that if you use the tools that are on the toolbox, if you use those tools and the doctor says Alzheimer's, but my loved one also has high blood pressure and a history of strokes and has had 3 stunts put in their heart, I feel confident to say, what about vascular? Because we got this history here. And so, Glenda, you can run into physicians who say it doesn't matter which one it is. And what they mean is it doesn't matter because it's a terminal disease, but it does matter. It matters how this person's brain dies because that tells me how I'm going to approach them. It tells me whether or not they can have certain medicines. It tells me how quickly the disease will progress, which kind of, sorry, apparently we've just been attacked here. Which kind of medicine to use, what kind of care you'll be looking for. I've had other doctors say to the family, she's old, it doesn't matter. It still matters. It's still your person. They're forgetting what their job is. Their job is to work for you and to provide the best care possible. So you can certainly run into issues that are very confusing because you don't get a physician who's, you really do have to remember they may be doctors, but it doesn't mean they were at the top of their class. Right? And how many of us have met a doctor who's just a jerk? How many of us met a guy at the hardware store who's just a jerk? I mean, they're everywhere. So if I get one that I don't like, I don't use them again. And I look for doctors who are board certified because those are the smart ones. And that's who I want looking at me and my loved ones.
Yeah. I just personal experience to, validate what you were saying. I had a friend and I happened to take her to the neurologist for a diagnosis because it was clear that something was going on. And so I knew she had had strokes in the past and I brought that up to him and he had the image of her brain and everything up on the screen and told me why it was not vascular, that it was Alzheimer's. But I never trusted that response. She's gone now, so, it really doesn't matter,
but it so easily was 2 dementias.
Exactly. Now I know that. I didn't know that then.
You can't
speak up is what I'm saying. Speak up.
Brain with stroke damage and go, they don't have vascular dementia when they've already got an Alzheimer's. So that foolish, that just, anyway. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, you want to go forward with your presentation now?
That was what I wanted to show y'all, but if y'all want to talk some about socialization, we can do that too. Okay. So, one of the phrases that I've been hearing, Glenda, is normal atrophying brain. Now, doesn't that just put bejeebers out of you?
Yeah.
Normal atrophying brain. So what exactly does that mean? What it means is after the age of about 32, all of your organ systems, your body now begins the aging process. And each year, you and I lose a percentage of function of each of our organ systems. Now, does that mean when I turn 80, I only have half of a kidney? No. And the reason for that is that all of our systems work above 100%. Your brain works above 100%. Your body, you can lose all of your limbs and still live. You can lose your intestine and live. You can lose your stomach, your spleen, kind of need the pancreas. You can lose part of the liver, one of the kidneys, or both the kidneys. You can lose a lung. We can give you another heart. We can add stuff in to make you hear, to make you see. All of your systems work above 100%. So when the doctor says your loved one has a normal atrophying brain, what you really need to hear is that they did an MRI of the whole body, and they also have normal atrophying lungs and a normal atrophying kidney and a normal atrophying bladder and normal atrophying knees. Everything is atrophying. It's normal, but it doesn't mean the brain is not functioning normally. Okay. And you know that because you have to lose a pound of brain tissue before a person looks physically sick, right? And the older brain is thicker and richer and knows more. You really have forgotten more than your grandchildren will ever know. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, it does.
Term normal atrophying brain, the first thing I think of is and normal atrophying bladder and normal atrophying kidneys and normal atrophying stomach and normal everything is aging. And that's all that means. Okay. But because we see it as something different, and Glenda, especially you and I see damaged brains, we think, oh no, oh no, oh no. The other thing is when y'all have seen signs of early memory loss, that big thing that the government puts out and all of the big groups put out, the problem is none of these are early memory sign warning losses. And as family caregivers, y'all are well aware of that. By the time you actually see true memory loss, they're in stage 5 and their hippocampus doesn't exist. Poor judgment leading to bad decisions. Linda, does that bring back any memories of your 20s?
Yeah.
Those are late stage, 4 and 5, 4 to 6. Loss of spontaneity and sense of initiative. That's not an early thing. That's a later thing. Taking longer to complete normal daily tasks, repeating questions, repeating information. That's definitely stage 5, stage 6. Handling money and paying the bills. For some of you, you didn't realize anything was wrong until you realized money was gone. Wandering and getting lost, that's actually 5 and 6. Misplacing things. Now, Glenda, already today I've misplaced 7 things, but hey, it's just whatever. It's not a big deal. I knew what all of them were when I found them. And mood and personality changes. That's usually not really a dementia thing, although it can happen in some people, but it's stage 5. And then an increased anxiety or agitation that slowly builds. So what throws me, Glenda, is we have never asked family members, what did you notice first? Because these things were noticed that are on your screen, they were already well into the disease. So nobody's asked the families, what did you actually see wrong that made you think something's not right here? Those were the early warning signs. These are the things that anybody else should be able to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it just reinforces that we need to keep those records as we go through all of this experience so that we can say, this is what happened.
Well, and this is one of the reasons I love the short IQ code. And I think I even have it in here. It's in your staging tools, but the short IQ code, every single question starts with compared to 10 years ago today. How can they do this? And because you've been caught up in that mire of caregiving, and it's every day, and it's week after week, and it's month after month, and it's year after year, some of you are going to realize you've been doing care. God, Glenda, I've met people who realized they married a second marriage was somebody with dementia. They thought he was funny. It was dementia. And so there's no definitive thing written down about this is what you would actually be looking for. So use your short IQ code. Now, these are the 9 most common dementias, and the way you use those, of course, is you take away the ones that the person cannot have. You eliminate the dementias they can't have. Now, if you're in areas of the country where there is chemical production, oil production, metal production, you want to think about another dementia called toxic dementia. Smoking actually causes toxic dementia, Glenda, although it ends up being under vascular dementia. But people who work in areas with chemicals, oil, metal plants, we see higher toxic dementias that become Parkinson's. So we see higher levels of Parkinson's and Lewy body in those regions, and it's obviously believed to be related to chemicals. Okay, here's your brain comparison. Everything you're seeing in your loved one is real. It is not happening because they're annoyed with you. It's just because you're married to them that you're annoyed with them, right? It's just part of being married. What does the country singer say? Me and that woman got a license to fight. But this is why they're doing those things. It's not purposeful. It's brain damage. Now, as you go through this, you have to remember that as caregivers, even if your loved one is in a community, you need purpose and socialization. And one of the things that we know that is critical for you as a person that we want to survive this disease is to help you stay focused on the present. Being a caregiver means that you help someone you love. It is an unconditional form of love. And some of you even help people you love that you don't like very much. And that's it. You especially get angel wings for that. Not everybody had a perfect marriage. Not everybody had a perfect relationship. Being a caregiver in those quiet times lets you reflect and gives you a chance to be together. If your loved one's in a community, it gives you a chance to be together without being the caregiver. And Glenda, if your loved one is in a community, do not go there and do the work. That is one of the biggest things that we see. The staff comes by, the spouse is in the room, so they just let the spouse do it. The spouse, you need to step out of the room and say, you need to take care of my loved one now. And they change them. They do all that. You're there to reflect and have time with them without having to be a caregiver. You can bring something to help your loved one with cards. We have Mother's Day coming up, Father's Day coming up, birthdays are always coming up. You can always bring a treat. And Glenda, as we know, the rule is if you bring donuts, you better bring enough for everybody because they can smell them through concrete walls. And then being able to have time together without stress can be very helpful. And Glenda, before I forget it, there is a hospice physician who's world famous because he accidentally electrocuted himself in college and he lost his limbs, and he is brilliant. And he says in his communities where he oversees hospice, when the loved one dies, he has flowers. They always, all of our communities always have flowers. They have flowers growing everywhere. They have flowers in the rooms. But the loved ones take flower petals and lay that on the body before the gurney is zipped up. And his research shows that changes how you view your loved one's death in that community. So it's an interesting thought to remember. And if you just Google hospice doctor who electrocuted himself, you'll find a fabulous story about this young man. And he is a young man. Okay, now you remember your brain lobes. Okay, did they forget things? Did they begin to curse? Did they start doing other stuff? Did they forget, like one of you said earlier, doesn't remember what they had yesterday for lunch? By the way, how many of you on this call can remember what you had for lunch yesterday? That's a memory exercise, Glenda. 2 memory things. If you're right-handed, start brushing your teeth with your left hand and sit down and see how many days you can go back and remember what you ate. And that was something that we used to do in college to test each other's memories, was how far back we could go with what we had eaten. Remember to use the short IQ code. Okay, the short IQ code helps you realize you're not crazy. You really have been witnessing all of this loss in your loved one for a long, long time. Now, gadgets, gadgets are new to us, really. And I know that I don't have dementia, but if I got a new phone, I'd have to go to the mall and find a 2-year-old who could program it for me. I know that that's really the use of grandchildren and great grandchildren, is they can program these new things, and you and I can't. But as you go through your short IQ code, it's one of those pieces of medical paperwork that will help you realize you're not losing it. There's nothing wrong with you. You have slowly, over at least a decade, been witnessing your loved one lose their ability. And you may have watched them use the polite chuckle and notice that other family members are fooled by that. And the polite chuckle is something you and I learn to do socially. If we get lost in a conversation or lost in what everybody else is talking about, to come back into the conversation, we have a chuckle. And that chuckle can fool your family members that don't realize it's just a social cue, a social way to not let people know I'm lost. The short IQ code is also going to talk about money and finances. So it really does help you, but it also helps your physician to know that these are not things that just started happening. And if they are things that started happening, they need to understand that too. But as you go through and do your short IQ code, Sheila, when you do it, stop and think. And for each one, think, what year did I notice this was not right anymore? And as you write down those years, it helps you with your own stress and your own grief, because you realize I've been watching this for a decade, not for 6 months, not for 2 years, not for 3 years. These are slow moving, slow progressing diseases. And when you have the tools, you can look back and give yourself a big hug. You've been doing a huge amount of work. Watch your loved one's attention. This is one of the things that you would have noticed. Are they easily distracted? Squirrel. Or are there periods of decreased alertness? Now, Glenda, you and I both know people with vascular dementia may wake up very alert and then run out of energy during the day, or they wake up slow and build energy during the day. So there are different presentations of attention and alertness based on the type of dementia. Look at your Hamilton anxiety tool. And again, all of these tools are on my website. They're in the toolbox section on the front page. I think it doesn't say toolbox. I think it just says, here's the tools. But for the Hamilton anxiety scale, Glenda, you're not only going to do that for your loved one, because that's how you measure their anxiety, but you're also going to do it for you. Because if you don't take care of you, if you drop dead today, who in your family steps forward? And who in your family follows your wants of how your loved one is to be taken care of? So we want to check your anxiety level as well as your loved one. And all of these tools, Glenda, of course, they're observational tools, because you can't ask a person with brain damage, are you able to do this? Because they have brain damage. That doesn't make any sense. For language, look, are there word finding difficulties? If you're noticing a lot of language issues with your loved one, go to the FTD website just to rule out that there's not a primary progressive aphasia. So Glenda, the website is theaftd.org, theaftd.org. Then you, on the menu, click on what is FTD, scroll down to primary progressive aphasia, and see if any of those descriptions of language loss match your loved one, or there's enough of it there that that's something you need to let your doctor know, because those language dementias are different. Does that make sense? Glenda says yes, that's all I need.
Yep.
A lot of you have seen your loved one do the clock test, and you've probably wondered, why in the world does the doctor want to know if they can put down 10 minutes to 11? And the reason is it's a visual spatial functioning test. It's actually measuring how they're seeing things in space and time, how they see themselves in space and time. So if all of the numbers are clustered over on one side, it means they've got a big visual deficit on the left side of their body. That means they're not going to see stuff on this side. That means they're going to be more likely to be bruised on this side. They're going to walk into stuff on this side. So that's what that clock test is doing. The slumps test, which has the clock test in it, is on the toolbox section. You can give your loved one a slumps test if you want to, or you can teach yourself all the answers. That's what I caught my mother doing one day, Glenda.
Yeah.
And she said, apple ball penny. I said, what in the world are you doing? And she said, apple ball penny. She said, I've learned about y'all's little test. I'm getting prepared. I said, Mother, we change the answers every 3 months. I didn't make her happy. Executive function is, I think, the thing that a family member is going to report that they noticed first, that they begin to skip steps in doing things that normally they would have done without batting an eye. And Glenda, this could be they went into the shower and actually took a shower, but didn't bother to take soap, shampoo, or a towel. That's not planning. This could be now, and I hate to use this example, but I'll use it anyway. You went to the store and you didn't get what you were supposed to go there for.
Oh, Tam.
So a normal brain thing. So if you've done that, that's nothing to worry about. It's that you went to the store to plan for a party and you forgot about the party. That's executive function. The other one is I'm busy, I'm stressed, and I forgot to get the milk. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I think when families think and look back, you'll see that you begin to notice these little glitches in executive function.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's our way to live and live without developing dementia. This does not work for your loved one. Your loved one already has a disease. This is the Million Veterans Longitudinal Study. Your easiest way to find it is on CNN. Guess how many veterans they studied?
Uh,
A million. A million. And they were aged 48 to 100. What color is General Grant's white horse? Do you remember that question from school? He's
yeah.
what? Okay, so what the Million Veterans study showed was that you need to exercise at least an hour a day. Human evolution is slow. It does not have to be in 1 hour, Glenda. It can be in 5-minute increments. It can be in 15-minute increments. But humans evolved to walk 8 to 20 miles a day, not 200 steps. Don't get addicted to opiates. Sheila, that's how we know this was a VA study, because the VA gave away more opiates to veterans than the entire state of Ohio. Don't use tobacco. How many of you are getting enough sleep? Uninterrupted sleep. Sleep without pain, sleep without worry, actual deep sleep. Now, if you've gone 3 months, Glenda, without normal routine sleep, you have developed insomnia and you need to see your doctor. We need to not use alcohol. Now, this is really a challenge down here in Texas, because during the pandemic, we led the nation in drinking. We're very proud of that. After the pandemic, we continue to lead the nation in drinking. But alcohol does impact your aging. And for women, it impacts us with cancer that we didn't understand before, heart disease that we didn't understand before. So if you notice your alcohol consumption's gone up, you really need to work to bring it down. As you're doing that, if you're having a drink in the evening, you have a cocktail hour, have a glass of water before your cocktail, have a glass of water after your cocktail to help your brain process that alcohol. If you're, look at Sheila drinking right now, having my water. Drinking too much, Glenda, your body actually wakes up between 2 and 3 in the morning, because that's when the brain processes the alcohol. That you have positive social interactions, and that's with people that you like, hence the word positive. And it helps to have positive interactions with people of all ages. So that's where grandchildren or great-grandchildren or neighborhood kids or whoever, it's important to have social interactions with people of all ages. The Mediterranean diet is the recommended diet. And they come out with this every 3 years, Glenda, and go, here's the diet so you don't get dementia. It's the diet because it's the diet that most follows our evolution as humans. And as a member of the Texas Southwest Cattlemen's Association, it pains me greatly to say this, but we're supposed to eat red meat once a month.
Oh, my goodness.
Steak and French fries every single day. I thought that's what everybody ate. So, yeah, I guess that explains my high cholesterol. But Mediterranean diet is, it's vegetables, it's fish, it's fruit. It's not red meat. It is a lot of stuff. And then how many of you are stressed? And what a ridiculous question to ask this group. Yeah, I feel bad for asking that, Sheila. Sheila's like, you've lost it, Tam. You have to be able to manage stress. And so in your paperwork, in our toolbox section, there is the geriatric depression scale that you can give yourself. It's yes or no based on how you felt in the last week. In the last week, not your lifetime, in the last week. That test needs to go to your doctor. Depression that's not treated becomes Alzheimer's. Hamilton anxiety is there for you to measure your anxiety level. The Zaret, like zebra, Zaret burden interview is in there for you to measure your burden level and your stress as a caregiver. And anybody with a score over 40 should be seeing their doctor. The caregiver grief inventory is in there so that you can measure your grief and take that to your doctor as well. So for families, caregivers, those 4 pieces of paper need to go with you to see your physician, and you need to be honest with them. Glenda, I had a lady in one of the northern states who had been in the hospital for her 3rd heart hospitalization, and she was taking care of a husband with Lewy bodies, so more challenging. And then the cardiologist actually said to her, "Oh, I think you can go 6 more months as a caregiver." She's been 3 times for surgery. I think she's gone 3 times past her line as a caregiver. And he's now been moved into care. And for years, she had built up this what if, when it's time for care, he's going to have a fit. And instead, they came and said, the doctor wants you to come do some rehab and your dog can come. And he went, well, this is a great adventure. And he packed his bag and off he went. And so watch your what ifs. That's anxiety. What if, and coulda, woulda, shoulda is depression. Okay. And then the tools for staging dementia are also in the toolbox, in the tool section. Okay, Glenda?
Right. What's your time looking like today, Tam?
I'm cool. I'm chill. Wherever you.
Okay, let's go through the questions and situations on the chat box. And I'm going to jump over to Judith because I had her wait on a question since the very beginning. Judith says, my husband is in memory care. The doctor for the facility shares little with me. What can I expect from medical staff? And then she also wanted to know your opinion about trazodone for sleep.
Trazodone's great for sleep. It's got a nice, they've got nice validity ratings on it, nice history, all of those things. Without being ugly, you've got to remember the way the medical system is set up is the doctor's being paid to be the medical director there because they have to have a medical director to be licensed by the state. That doesn't mean the doctor is an expert. That doesn't mean the doctor understands the disease. That doesn't mean the doctor doesn't have ageism. I mean, I've run into medical directors of buildings that didn't like old people. So how in the world are you their medical director, right? So that means they don't get treated right for pain. They don't get treated right for their dementia. A lot of times what you'll find out is the family educates itself. And I have met quite a few family members that know more than the physicians in the buildings do. And that's not unusual.
So your answer to Judith is do her research and be prepared and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, you can. This is the professionals book that I did. And there's a video that goes with each chapter, but we have one for families. It's a different color, and instead of resident, it says your loved one. That will educate you on the disease, but that's 350 pages, and there's 12 hours of videos that go with it. Now you can get the videos online. WellMed has them. You'll have to search harder for them because they're scattered throughout. They're on YouTube. You can find the videos that match each one of those chapters. But what's horrific to me is this is the only disease, Glenda, where the family has to go educate themselves because the doctors doing the care don't have the education to be doing the care because they've never been taught. And I think in the state of Texas, we have less than 30 geriatricians. Florida has 200 and something. So a geriatrician is the opposite of a pediatrician. How many pediatricians do you think we have in Texas, Glenda?
A
1,000.
bazillion.
And how many medical doctors do we have for aging people? 28.
Not many.
28. Yeah.
Hmm.
So really, really hard. I mean, you don't have to go educate yourself about cancer. If your loved one has cancer, they call you and explain it to you, but this disease doesn't. And so you end up having to go find materials and hopefully good materials that'll explain the disease to you.
Yeah, I had never looked at it that way, but definitely. Which kind of is a good segue into Stephanie's comment, or Steph. Neurologists vary in the amount of knowledge training they have in reference to dementia. I believe that university hospitals are ones that engage in dementia research are better sourced for screening and managing care. And you speak to that often.
Well, the neurologist must be a dementia specialist. Otherwise, neurologists study headaches and movement disorders. That's their job. And so they don't study this disease. And it's not, it's also not financially lucrative for them.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm a regular neurologist, I see 35 to 45 people a day. If I'm a dementia neurologist, I see 8.
Yeah. Different.
I drive a sports car and I have a lake house, and in the other one, I've never paid my student loan. So it's
Yeah.
not clear, and it's not well studied.
Yeah.
And it's I don't even know how you would get into a research neurologist to be seen, because they're in research
They're in the lab.
in the labs doing stuff.
Yeah.
Time what we find is our best places to take people are for the screening is to the medical schools that have the dementia screening placements in them, because they're medical.
Dr.
So-
Tam, that's what I did. I'm in Washington State.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
my husband went to see 2 different neurologists who I felt just gave this goody 2 shoes. Oh, get some more sleep, watch your diet, exercise. It was doing all that. And finally, and after, when we were due for 1-year follow-up, and found out the neurologist she had seen had left that practice, I said, okay, we have a connection at UW. I'm calling someone I know who used to work in research there to find out who to ask for. We have a university center in our backyard, and that's where we're going. And it was the best decision I ever made. I don't know, or either before or after marrying my husband, but that was the best decision. And we had to wait. You can't self-refer there. You have to have a doctor refer you, or they call you to make the appointment. We had to wait a few months for the appointment. It was during COVID. It was March of 2020, so it all got canceled and postponed. But we finally got him in, and he needed to stop working. He was a physician. He had to stop working.
I think what part of it is too is I think it is very hard to tell someone that they're sick. And it's
He knew, though. He self-referred to neurology. He knew something was off.
But about for the others, I think that I have seen a neurologist that I was not happy that's where this guy was being taken. He clearly had a dementia cognitive disorder, and she had him bend and touch his toes and said that he was fine. And he wasn't. He wasn't fine at all, but he was an attorney. So I have found that the higher educated the person is, the less likely the doctor is to listen to their spouse. And
Amen.
No, actually, my husband sought out, he voluntarily looked at research going into be screened. And that wasn't the case at all. He knew he wasn't 100%.
Husband's story and compare it to the other 1,000 people around you, none of them have that same story. They fight and kick and scream to get their loved one to go see a doctor and to find a doctor. So what you had happen was extremely fortunate.
Oh, that's right. We were very lucky that he was aware.
I love the artwork behind you, girlfriend. Look behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are those cats playing bass instruments? Steph, look behind you.
No,
Oh,
yeah, Steph,
no,
your picture
that is a
behind you.
wall. That's a wall hanging that a friend of mine made. It's
That's
a quilt.
awesome. That's awesome. No,
It's the wedding scene from Fiddler.
oh, that's
Yeah.
my point is, I went to physicians and I'm left with the belief that they're scared to tell somebody you have a terminal disease, or that they're not confident enough to say, this is what this is and this is what it means. And so they just sort of dismiss the family out. What happened with your husband was, it's the story I tell about, every now and then I meet somebody and mama comes and gathers the kids together and says, kids, my brain's not working right. Let's go to the bank. Let's go to the attorney. Let's go get all of this stuff done. And then let's go pick me out a community. That your story is not the average story.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm glad for that for you. And
Yeah.
I believe if we were more open about it, maybe we would have more men like your husband who early in the disease would say something's wrong with my brain, instead of the way it is now where people sort of naturally hide it. Yours instead came forward and said, there's got to be something going on here and I need help with it. And that's a different presentation than what most people get from their loved one. So I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
I love
Great stuff.
He's in memory care now. We had what I called it an ambush, but my kids they really did. It was an intervention because I'd already looked for places. Just this has been going on for almost 5 years now. So he was already going someplace for a day drop in, and it was an easy transition for him to move in there. And he was at the point where it wouldn't have mattered. He really didn't know anymore. But when I was, describing some of the things that I was dealing with at home, my kids just took the bull by the horns and said, "Okay, it's time, Mom."
got good. Most of the kids I know are terrified of their parents and can't understand why their parents aren't saying, come help me. So
Yeah.
Well, I don't ask for help from them, but just we'd get together, they'd see changes, they heard some of what I was dealing with the last couple of months, and then they made that decision. They made an appointment. One of them made an appointment to see me. I thought he was going to go over like year-end finances. The other brother number 2 is standing at the door. I'm like, why aren't you at school? He's a teacher. He said, got sub for the morning, Mom. And then they pulled up brother number 3 on their FaceTime, who lives across the country. And then they said, okay, it's time, Mom.
fear, that's what's going to happen to you when Glenda and I show up.
That's pretty funny.
I got to tell you, Steph, when I hear stories like that, I know that I'm talking to people that were good parents and love
Mhm.
and raise their kids well.
Yeah. And they the 2 who live local each have 2 young girls. They're under 11 and between 7 and 11. They occasionally go and visit. They bring the girls to go visit grandpa. They see where he is, where he lives. But he's at the point where he's in a very enriching environment. It's all memory care, but he really can't even engage in anything there.
But he's got round the clock care.
Yes,
and
he does.
all of the research indicates our loved ones get better care in memory care, especially at the end, because they're trained to watch for.
He's got more than one set of eyes on him.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You achieve rest, and I'm so glad you've got grandbabies. Those, everybody will back me up on this. Those will change your life. They will keep you along, those grandkids will. So
All right, let's see where we are here. Let me go back up. Anna, I truly believe that my late father masked for Mom for several years because since his death 7 years ago, her progression has been significant.
well, he may have, and it makes sense. It's not mask like I would try to hide something for Glenda. It's more of, it's their marriage and you're their kid, so it's none of your business, is one way. And then the other is, if your dad's been gone 7 years, you're definitely seeing the disease speed up and progress, because it progresses and speeds up because there's less and less healthy brain tissue. So you could form a national support group of children whose parents didn't tell them what was going on. You truly could. And there's I know so many people personally who didn't really realize until the funeral that their other parent was as sick as they were because the parent that had died had really taken great care of and covered for them. And I think it's what we were taught in gerontology is it's a marriage thing. It's their marriage and it's their business. And men take caregiving very seriously. So that doesn't surprise me. It makes it tough for you, though. Makes it really, really hard. And for you adult children, it can make you feel like you didn't matter or somehow you weren't, something wasn't right. It seems to be more based on it's their marriage. It just seems to be more based on that than an actual affront to you. So try not to take things like that personally, anybody who's having that happen. Okay, do we have anything else?
Yes, we do. Anne Marie said, I saw what seemed to be passive aggressive behavior that looking back was just him not being able to make decisions, the executive function. And something else she mentioned was, so my college friend, auto repairman with Parkinson's makes sense.
I'm sorry?
When you were talking about
maybe the toxic poisoning.
yes, the toxic poisoning that her friend is a
Works
repairman.
in auto stuff.
Yes. Dorsey.
I'm sorry, this is Emery. My comment was different from Anna Walker's. The two different people, right?
Sorry.
The passive aggressive behavior you were talking about, family members, and what did you actually notice before the things that a doctor in the doctor's office might have noticed? And for me, that was a big one. It caused a lot of problems in our family because it looked like passive. I'll do that, and then they don't do it. Or oh, I won't do that anymore, and then they do it again. And it wasn't, that, tell me one thing and do the other thing on purpose, nah, right? It was just that he, for us, the things were, okay, yeah, I'll get that light fixture put back up and not do it and not do it. 27 years is long enough to wait, right? So for me, that was a big one. And maybe other people see that kind of what might look like passive aggressive behavior and then realize I just am in a place where I can't make a decision anymore.
So you and let me know too, when you look at your short IQ code, y'all, does that trigger something for? Because you look at those early warning signs of memory loss and they're not. But what you described sounds like early memory loss.
Yeah. Thanks
well,
for
he
sharing.
has Lewy bodies, so it could be memory loss. I don't dispute that either. One of the first symptoms we took to the doctor was he had been delivering parts to little mom and pop auto shops in the area for 6 years. And then all of a sudden he couldn't remember how to get to those places. So it could be memory loss too.
Okay.
Well, function would be, loss of executive function would be a memory loss feature. But I think executive function starts sooner than people realize, and they don't have the words to say, oh, look, he's missing executive function. But you certainly have the words to say he seems a little passive aggressive, like he says he'll do stuff and then it's like it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I didn't understand executive function before I learned about Lewy body disease, and then he did exhibit that, just the inability to make a decision. He has 3 tasks to do. Which one is he going to do first? He couldn't decide, so he did nothing. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate it. The other thing you were talking about was how some people's vision is impacted, and some of the things that they can and cannot do any longer, or can't do as well, is because of vision loss.
Most people has changed because of brain damage. But in Parkinson's and Lewy body, it can be something sitting right in front of him, Anne Marie.
Oh yeah,
can't see it.
He has posterior cortical atrophy also. So
Oh, I'm
it,
so s-
I am too. It complicates things a great deal. But I don't know how to tell if I know that as the dementia progresses, that there comes a point where perhaps one of the eyes just shuts down.
in stage 6, in a regular Alzheimer's,
Mm-hmm.
occipital lobe loses the connection to the left eye, but in posterior cortical atrophy, remember y'all, that is a variant of Alzheimer's, posterior cortical atrophy. And in this, skin feels like it's being pricked and he is slowly going blind.
Yeah.
So his dementia is just that much worse. So you want to make sure you've got lots of light in the house.
Yeah.
Give him every opportunity. The lady that I tell y'all about that's in her 90s, that's so mad at her 90-year-old husband, she's got him out in the garage smoking his cigar at 180 heat, wanting him to die. She's putting black stuff, like a black clicker on a black coffee table, and can't understand why he can't see that.
Mm-hmm.
Just have to remember, he couldn't see it if it was a white table with a black thing on it. So your husband's vision loss is just going to make his dementia more horrible.
Difficult. Yeah. Does a drooping eyelid indicate anything about whether he's able to see through that eye?
If the eyelid is drooping down and covering the iris of the eye, then he's not able to see. He can't see through the pupil if the pupil is covered.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Dementia.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.
You're
So,
welcome.
Okay, moving on. We still have a lot to go through here.
Okay.
Anna said in February she had to walk her mom step by step on how to make a peanut butter sandwich, and I'm thinking this is really unusual for her.
it's a decline.
Yeah.
But it's, Anna staying alert enough to realize how many steps there are to make a peanut butter sandwich. You know, there's an old exercise we used to do with CNAs. We'd have a enclosed bag of bread and a jar of peanut butter and a knife and a spoon, and we'd say, tell them to tell me how to make a sandwich. So they would say, we'll get 2 pieces of bread. So you just rip the whole bag apart. And the point is to make them realize everything you and I do is a series of tiny little tasks that become bigger tasks. So to really make a peanut butter sandwich, I must first undo the twisty tie, set the twisty tie down, fluff open the opening of the bread, reach in and take out 2 slices, set those down, put the twisty tie back on, tighten it, get all the air out, set my bread aside. Then I've got to go open the peanut butter, but then I've also got to peel the plastic lid off the peanut butter where they've sealed it. Then I have to tell the person, has to tell me to pick up the knife, to get a scoop, to pick up a slice of bread, and then to smear it on there. It's step by step by step. And until you do that kind of activity, you don't realize that they're losing those little steps. It's not on purpose. It's just the death of the brain tissue.
Yeah. So a couple of things, FYI. Darcy wanted you to know that she ordered 30 copies of your itty bitty book from Amazon and was only able to get 9. She was disappointed.
They should be shipping.
Well, she just wants you to maybe check on that. So
There's
nothing.
But honestly, if one of y'all wants to order 30 books, call me and I'll order them and we'll get you a little discount.
All right, Darcy, did you get that? She may have had to leave. No, she's there. Okay, Darcy, that's the clue.
I knew for somebody had just bought a bunch of books because it flagged me that a number of books had just sold. And all ship out at the same time. I don't understand how they do that business. I have books that might ship out 100 or going to someone and they'll get one day, the next 2, and then they'll get 97 on the 3rd day. So it makes no sense to me.
All right, and I'll put Tam's number in the chat box and just before we end anyway. So Anna continued, she said, since last we met, I have taken 2 planned respites with mom at a local assisted living facility. Good for you, Anna.
You
She had a
and
great time, aside from a bout of diarrhea this past time. Stay in March was 4 days. April was 10 days. I saw my doctor just before the April respite and increased my antidepressant, and now I'm sleeping through the night regularly for the first time since the November election. I plan to take a long break again at the end of the year and have Mom winter at that facility because being on the farm is too isolating, and I will likely make the decision to have Mom there full time in the coming year. Thank you for the education, the support, and the encouragement. That's a success story, Tam.
so proud of you for taking care of yourself. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's not as funny as the story of the woman that just showed up on her son's doorstep with his dad and his suitcase, but I love it. I love it. You're taking care of yourself. You're seeing your doctor. We want you to survive.
Yes, for
All
sure.
We want you to be the survivor. So do those steps.
Absolutely. Let me see. I hope Morgan didn't have to hang up. This is for Morgan, and she says, a question. I've never done anything like this and know nothing about my mom's condition. She had a stroke 4 years ago, and from my understanding, she had an occipital stroke, which caused the onset of dementia. 1 second, my mom was normal, and then in the blink of an eye, she had crazy delusions and hallucinations. It's me, myself, and no friends and no family. My mental health is severely suffering. Whoa, man. I'm looking to see if she's still on. If not, we may have to reach out to her.
Anybody? Okay, so
I'm here.
Oh, good.
all right, Morgan.
I said her and him. Okay.
It is really, really critical that you recognize the stress y'all are under, and the therapist that would benefit you the most, because this is a long, drawn out disease process, and because you are watching someone you love slowly die, the therapist that you're wanting is a trauma therapist. There's a good chance that everybody on this call has PTSD simply as the result of watching someone you love die. And that wasn't recognized before the pandemic. It had just begun to be recognized that family caregivers got secondary traumatic stress disorder, but now we realize it's full-on post-traumatic stress disorder. So for you, the support that you need is any community near you should have a monthly support group that you can go to. There are online support groups like what Glenda and I are doing that you can be a part of. You can go back and look for more information on YouTube for dementia. And you can do an online therapist or an in-person therapist that'll probably be helpful for quite a while. But look for a therapist who's a trauma specialist, because otherwise they don't understand. They don't get what you're going through, even with training as therapy. That's why therapists specialize now. So a trauma therapist is who you would want to see. And also do the depression scale, do the anxiety scale, because how could you not have something bothering you mood-wise, because this affects us when it's someone that we love. And do Zaret's burden interview and do the caregiver grief and get those to your doctor. And then look for a trauma specialist as a counselor in your area. And a lot of times now, Glenda, we're doing therapy by phone. So you don't even go to a therapist office anymore, and people FaceTime. I know people that tell me they've never seen their therapist. They just talk to them on the phone. So whatever will.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
So to find a therapist around here, I mean, it's slim pickings. Everybody's on a wait list. To let alone be a trauma.
Yeah, you can go online. There are now national groups that will help you find a local trauma person, or your trauma therapist might be somebody in another state. A friend of mine who's a trauma therapist has clients that are in several states. So I would look online. I can't think of who it is. I see them advertised. online, but there's mental health online therapy available now that wasn't there before.
Oh yeah, there's so much available. You're specifically saying trauma, so I
Oh,
want to.
trust me, they're easy to find. They're not hidden. They're not the unicorns. You can find them.
Thank you.
Right. Look at Psychology Today also has a referral area on Psychology Today where they can find, and you can put in a specific topic like trauma, and they will pop up by that category.
Well, part of the problem is being on Medi-Cal, so
Okay, you've got me on that one, Morgan, because I'm not familiar with California's system. So does that prohibit you from getting that type of assistance?
well, only so many therapists take Medi-Cal because
Oh, okay.
Medi-Cal doesn't pay for shit. So
Yeah,
that's
okay.
what I'm talking about waiting list is you got hundreds of people who are on Medi-Cal and they're all on waiting lists. And that's
Okay.
just for a regular therapist, let alone be a trauma therapist.
Right, right. Mm,
This is just the tip of my iceberg. I could sit here for about 24 hours to tell you my story.
yeah.
But yeah.
That would be bad. I would look at if you have a university near you that has a social work or therapy department,
Mm,
they'll let folks come in and you're meeting with a student therapist who's also with a full therapist. And so for some people, that's how they start therapy, is by going to the colleges and universities. So if there's one of
Excellent idea.
might try that. And you end up, to me, it's sort of a win-win because you end up with a PhD level therapist who's teaching, and you end up with a master level student getting their licensing and getting their education. And you're coming to them with something that's not your average, I feel down in the dumps. So you're coming to them with, I have a family member with dementia and I feel completely beaten by this. And
Yeah.
that's more interesting for somebody who's going through their classes to work with. So I would try a university or a college that has those departments.
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent idea.
And it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a community college and there's Cal Poly Technical. So
Yeah.
Perfect. And Morgan, keep coming back to these sessions also, and know that Tam is out there if you need.
I already signed up for tomorrow.
Okay, good. And I put Tam's phone number there on the chat box, so if you want to get in touch with her, and she does travel and understand that. So you can leave a message and she will get back with you, but don't expect it, right away most of the time. And you can see our session surveys popped up there. I appreciate those of you that have already completed that. If you haven't, please take a couple of seconds to do that as we move forward. So Jill asked, what are alternatives to asking people living with dementia so many questions, as well-intentioned as it may be? It seems to be counterproductive in regards to dementia. And Tam, I've heard you speak about this so many times, but please, one more time.
Say the start of that again.
What are the alternatives to asking people who are living with dementia so many questions? And I think what they're referring to is making people with dementia feel worse because you're asking them all these questions. You already said that to me, Mom. Don't you remember that? That kind of thing is what I'm thinking she might mean.
Well, all of your tools are observational tools. Because we can't ask them questions and expect them to give us the correct answer, not because they're trying to be devious, but because they have brain damage. So in terms of asking questions, that is about a 2-hour communication presentation. You can find it on YouTube. It's about communicating in dementia, but 90% of our communication is done by our body language and our pitch and tone of voice, and whether I look like I'm happy to see you or I look like I'm fixing to hit you. And one of the challenges in speaking to a person with dementia who's hard of hearing, is that I have to be able to amplify my voice without changing my facial structure. Because normally when we begin to raise our voice, our facial feature takes on the more of the signs that I may be fixing to hit you. So part of it is the skill set of understanding most communication is body language, my pitch and tone of voice. I must always approach from the front to give this person a chance to see me. So I've got to be in their eye levels for them to see me. Anna Marie, the person whose husband has got posterior cortical, it means that he doesn't see here, 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 and eventually here. But your other dementia loved ones who y'all are on the line for, they also don't see here, 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 here. They lose those visual fields. So that's why it's so important that I always come from the front and that I am always in their eye level. If I'm not, they're not seeing me. They're seeing something over here, or they're seeing a part of my body that doesn't make any sense to them. So I've got to remember to approach from the front. I have to be prepared to repeat, 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 repeat. And I shouldn't, Glenda, really be asking the person questions. I mean, I may be saying, did you have a good breakfast? Looks like you've had a great breakfast. I love bacon. Don't you love bacon? Bacon is wonderful. Who doesn't love bacon? And so you're almost asking a question while you're giving the answer. If I'm having to ask a question, I'm being very short, very specific, and I'm watching the eyes to see if there's comprehension, because I'm remembering when I talk to a stage 5 person, they're understanding about 3 out of 4 words. When I'm talking to a stage 6 person, they're understanding 1 or 2 out of 10 words. And the stage 7 person is really not comprehending what we're saying at all. So it involves me paying a lot of attention. It involves TV shouldn't be on, radio's not on, shouldn't be a big crowd around me. And it involves very focused, keeping myself calm, being able to repeat. And then, Glenda, there's a point in the disease where I'm not watching their face to see if they're understanding me. I'm watching to see if they're laughing or if they're concerned. And I want them laughing. So if I need silly while I'm talking to them, blow a bubble with bubble gum, remember that used to be funny, then I can do a little fun, silly thing with them. But I just have to understand, no matter what, they're doing the best they can at that time with the brain cells that are functioning. They're not doing anything on purpose. And if I get agitated, they're going to get agitated. So if you come in angry, you will make your loved one angry, and they can't get happy until they go to sleep, because their brain is damaged. So they have to have sleep for the adrenaline to really fully reabsorb. Okay. Right. So it's slow, it's repeat, it's watching for comprehension or understanding. Then there's a point where it's just, we're just trying to have a good day.
Yep. Jill, let me know if that answered your question. If not, maybe we can add a little more to it, more specific. Lots of thank yous here. Let's see. I think we got everybody. Oh, when a loved one is in the end stage, might speaking with a grief therapist be helpful for that person in the end stage of dementia?
No, the person with the end stage doesn't have the comprehension to understand they're dying, but it'd be very helpful for the family caregiver to talk about the grief they're feeling. Probably everybody on this channel is experiencing post-death grief right now. The person you loved isn't here anymore. That person you care for looks like them, and it sometimes acts like that person used to, but the person you loved is gone because of the brain damage. And so that takes a very, very heavy toll.
Okay. Wait a minute, I've got to follow this back to Steph. I meant the family caregiver patient can't communicate. Oh, when a loved one is in stage. Steph?
Yes, that's it. I was referring to caregiver.
Oh, okay. All right.
You
Caregiver, yes,
you mentioned trauma therapist, and I wondered if maybe even grief therapist.
The trauma therapist should be able to do grief therapy as well.
Okay.
You can also go to grief.com. Okay, that's David Kessler. He was Kubler-Ross's graduate student when they wrote The Stages of Grief. You can also go to Alzheimer's Society.uk, not association, but Alzheimer's Society.uk. They have wonderful stuff on their website about the grief process. They have stuff for talking to kids, teenagers, preschool, young adults. So there's really good information out there. And then grief.com's got really good stuff on it.
So we have to leave the country to check out UK for that, huh?
Alzheimer's Society.canada.ca, but for some reason, I've always been hooked into the UK one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great site, great information.
I'll have that. They have really good stuff and they don't ask you for any money.
Right. That's true. Okay, I have one last thing and then we're going to go because we've gone well over the time as we usually do. Earlier on, someone wanted more information on Barbara's blue book, spelling her last name. That was early on in the presentation, but I made a note.
It's K-A-R-N-E-S-R-N, and it's Barbara, B-A-R-B-A-R-A.
K-A-R-N, it's Carney?
Carnes.
C-A-R. Okay, got it. And what's the name of the book?
This one is By Your Side.
Okay.
The Guide for Caring and Dying at Home. This is actually her bigger book. But the others are just little pamphlets. And she's a guru of knowing what's happening at the end. And when you're like, there's things that happen at the end of life, Glenda, people don't know about. And here's one, and then we'll finish. Research indicates to us that if you are very, very close to the person who is actively dying, that as long as you're in the room with them, their soul could not make the break and move on. But the minute you step out of the room to go to the bathroom, they die. And it keeps families feeling like, stupid me went to the bathroom, stupid me went home and took a shower. I can't believe I left to go get something to eat. And what you didn't understand was that person was so close to you, they couldn't complete the death process until your soul left the room. So Barbara knows so much, and that is her specialty. And I think I spent maybe $100. I bought everything she had just because I'm working on some death and dying stuff, and she is a guru. She's also, if you do that Indeed business thing, she puts out something beautiful every day. I don't know if she has a group of angels that live at her house that come up with this stuff. I'm not sure, but Barbara's been around since I was in social work school. We didn't have computers then, so we didn't know how to find her. Yeah.
Okay, well, we've gone 45 minutes almost over. Happy to do that. I'm so glad I'm back with you. We'll be back. Let's see, we're in May, June, July. So watch for that. Get a hold of the Caregiver Teleconnection calendar if you have not already. Minerva has those available, and you can look on the Caregiver Teleconnection website and find those calendars there. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock Central Time, Caregiving and the Struggles with Addiction with Lucy Bareluck and Jana LaBelle. So maybe tune into that if you've seen some things that are related to addiction and caregiving. I'm so glad to see you all. I wish we could see you more often, but this is our schedule, and so we're happy to do it. We're happy to be with you. Tam, any final words? And I love the beads. I love the pearls myself. And when you explained it to me, it was kind of eye-opening, and I hope it was the same for all of you.
Okay, good. So other things, if you want to send an email, I'd love to get an email. I want to put together a book for families who have to do care at home, that care at home is their only option. And I am just wondering if there are specific things you might have thought of that you would need to know if you were doing care at home. because the reality is they're building these buildings like mad, but my generation hadn't saved any money. So don't go in there, but it's not our group. So if there's something you think of that you could use, and here's something helpful you'll find in the back of Barbara's book on end of life, is she also gives you forms for a daily care plan to help you if you're having to do care at home through the end of life. But also, the more you know, the more you can make sure the people doing care for your loved one are doing a better job. And don't be surprised if you know more than people in the communities. Okay.
Should they use Tam at tamcummings.com?
Sure.
Okay, I'm putting that in the chat box for you also, so you can email Tam.
Stuff you want information on, or something that you think of that you need. Like I found out when I did one book, because of something I was doing for Glenda, I went into this house and the woman was in a medical bed with 5 quilts on, a pressure ulcer, a wound, a diaper over the pressure ulcer, a rubber mat underneath the diaper. And so everything that you do not do to a pressure ulcer was being done. And the daughter had no idea how to change a bed with a person in the bed. And there is a method and technology, there's a way that we do care. And so what I want to create is a book that a family that cannot do care except in respite pieces, or maybe it's going to do care longer at home, so that they understand. So if there's anything you think you need more information about, shoot me an email and we're going to try to get a book written in a couple of months and get that out for folks.
Okay, one more thing. Anne-Marie has her hand up. Go ahead, Anne-Marie. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It kept popping up and down and up and down.
Oh,
I'm a little
okay.
nervous. The emails, I'm sorry, the emails for Dr. Tam, do you want us to put a specific subject line on this to make these pop together?
No, I see all my emails. I'm good.
Atta girl. Thanks.
I'm reading all this.
Could you repeat email address, please?
It's in the chat box. It's Tam at tamcummings.com.
If you want to be formal, you can send it to Dr. Tam at Tam Cummings.
I don't think we want to do that. We're all together here in this family, so to speak, and so we can call you Tam, right?
You need to stop.
Very close. Very, very close.
All righty. With that, we're going to sign off for today, and we hope to see you back with us in July. You can always find Tam on YouTube, on the Caregiver Teleconnection website. We're here for you. We're part of the team. So come back and spend time with us. Send Tam an email, give her a call. She's open to all that, and hopefully we can help you in your caregiving journey. So come back. Keep on coming back, y'all.
Thank you, Dr. Tam and Glenda.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, Dr. Cummings and Glenda. I love you.
I love you.
Guinevere, you're a mess.